Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
Hey, this is Tanner the Bulldozer Bozer.
Hi, this is Brian Burke from Toronto, Ontario.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Agro from Sportsnet Central.
This is Jay Onright.
This is Quick Dick coming to you from Tofnell, Saskatchewan.
Hey, everybody. My name is Theo Fleury.
This is Kelly Rudy.
This is Corey Cross.
This is Wade Redden.
This is Jordan Tutu.
My name is Jim Pattison.
Hey, it's Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada and Rogers Hometown Hockey, and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. Happy Hump Day. Happy Wednesday. Hope we can speed you along through the week. Hopefully, it's been a great week up to this point. I'm on my way to Edmonton to pick up some gym equipment, some long-awaited gym equipment. But nobody wants to hear about that. Let's get on to today's episode sponsors so we can get you on to the big guy of today's show. Jen Gilbert and team, for over 45 years, since 1976, the dedicated realtors of Coldwell Banker, Cityside Realty, have served Lloydminster and the surrounding area. Star Power, that's what they have. They're providing their clients with 7-day-a-week access. Service is a priority because they know big life decisions are not made during office hours. Their award-winning premier office franchise, combined with their knowledgeable, diligent, and friendly team, are here to support you through every step of the process. That's Coldwell Banker, Cityside Realty. For everything real estate, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, give them a call, 780-875-3343. Team over at Three Trees Tap and Kitchen, led by Jim Spenrath. Did you know, if you follow their social media, every week they're giving away gift cards to one lucky follower. And so all you got to do is play along, and you could win yourself, I don't know, half of a free meal. The other thing I always love pointing out, because I do it here in the studio, is they fill growlers of whatever your favorite beer is pretty much on tap, whether we're talking Fourth Meridian, the local boys, or Ribstone Creek. They do it all. You can grab anything off the tap. And me and the wife should have done this smarter on Saturday night, but make sure you call for a reservation. They were booked solid. I'm happy to hear that some restaurants are having some luck and some success right now. Three Trees does not surprise me. Next time we will call ahead. That's 780-874-7625. Crude Master Transport. Since 2006, Crude Master has been an integral part of our community. They're a leader in the oil and gas industry, and I always want to shine a light on what they do behind the scenes for our community. Heath and Tracy McDonald continue to give to projects, whether we're talking about the Health Foundation, minor hockey. They huge supporter of senior hockey in Helmond. But I know they supported other communities as well. That's Crude Master. They're always thinking community first. HSI Group, they are the local oil field burners and combustion experts that can help make sure you have a compliant system working for you. The team also offers security, surveillance, and automation products for residential, commercial, livestock, and agricultural applications. They use technology to give you peace of mind so you can focus on the things that truly matter. That's stop in at 3902 52nd Street or give Kim or Brody a call at 306-825-6310. T-Bar One Transport since 2002. For more than 19 years, the team over at T-Bar has offered excellent service, putting the community first. They're located now in both Lloydminster and Bonnyville. They can cover all your heavy haul needs. In their fleet, they have tank movers, 45-ton pickers, 1-tons, flat decks, Texas beds, winch trucks, and highway tractors. And this week, actually yesterday, I passed the boys heading towards Turtleford with a load of pipe. You probably catch the boys driving all over the country. For all your heavy haul needs, call the boys at T-Bar 1, 780-205-1709. Where has the SNP billboard gone? Well, let me tell you, if you drive past the UFA, it's no longer there. I guess you should try and find out where it is. Maybe check my social media, see the picture of it. I've thrown out the challenge on this Wednesday for the first 5 people to find it and take a picture with it. They'll get an SMP mug, all right? So I got to give a shout out to Read and Write for playing along in the game and changing it up with us. Now we got a new spot, so let's see if you guys can find it, all right? Finally, Gartner Management is a Lloydminster-based company specializing in all types of rental properties to help meet your needs. Whether you're looking at it for a small office or a 6,000-square-foot commercial space, give Wade Gartner a call today, 780-808-5025. And if you're heading into any of these businesses, make sure you let them know you heard about them on the podcast, all right? Now let's get on to that T-Bar 1 tale of the tape. Born in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan, he married his high school sweetheart. owned and operated the family business of Evergreen Florists, which sold back in 2014. He's a father, husband, and community pillar. I'm talking about Kevin Kromrey. So buckle up. Here we go. It is September 13th, 2020. Today I'm joined by Kevin Kromrey. I feel like I could butcher that name.
Yes.
But thanks for hopping in here and coming and sitting and talking a little bit about your life.
Well, would you like me to start at the beginning?
Sure. Well, born and raised here in Lloydminster?
Born in Lloydminster. Like most people in Lloydminster, I was born in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan. Well, that's mostly because the hospital's on the Saskatchewan side with the maternity ward. But in the early years, we were a Saskatchewan resident. My family lived in Saskatchewan until 59. Attended school in Lloydminster all the way through high school. My parents had a bit of a love for gardening, and in 1950, coming back from the war, my father was a bulk fuel agent in Lloydminster, and
So did your father go to war then?
Yes, he did, but he never got sent overseas. He was in the Army for, I think, 3 years. He had flat feet, which kept him on the safe side of the Atlantic.
What is flat feet?
I don't know, but apparently if you have them, you can't march.
Really?
Really. Or you can't march long distances.
So he was stationed just at a training facility?
Yeah, in Guelph, Ontario, and Regina, Saskatchewan. He never really talked very much about the war, so he wasn't involved in it, but he was in the Army. And I don't know why they would put somebody in the Army that can't go fight. I'm sorry, it's out of my realm of expertise.
Well, you were born in 1950. You're
Correct.
70 years old. What do you remember in those early years? Like, when you look back, what's one of the first memories you go like, oh yeah, I remember whatever?
Oh, very early on, I remember my grandparents. He was a CPR station agent in Lloydminster, and I was fascinated with the latest electronics in 1952. It's called the telegraph, how he could converse with people on it, and actually even tell if the other person on the other end was mad, just by the way they were click-clacking on the telegraph. So anyway,
he could tell that through.
Yes, he could tell if they were angry or happy. Something how the way they hit the keys.
Just the way it sounded?
Yeah.
Sorry, the listener can't hear what I'm pointing in my ears.
It's Morse code, dot,
Yeah.
right? And apparently, I guess if you really hit the button hard, it would made it. You could tell just by the tone of the. These are for two telegraph operators that talk
back and forth
on a regular basis, so they knew each other. And yeah,
I'm really pissed off today. He's going to hear about this.
Exactly. True, very true. But my first 9 years we lived in the east end of Lloydminster in what was called VLA Holdings. They're still there. They're 3-acre parcels starting on 45th Avenue. And coming out of the war, you could apply for a special loan to build a new house. So Dad did that and bought an acreage and built a new house there. So we lived there till 59. That's the house I was born in. In 1959, they wanted a different acreage. Dad wanted, I think he wanted to move to Alberta, although can't remember. And we bought a place in the south end of Lloydminster on the Alberta side. It was called the Johnson Place in our family, but it was actually the Rendell home, which has now been moved to Weaver Park Museum. It had an interesting yard, big spruce trees, an orchard, flower beds, and a tiny, tiny greenhouse, smaller than the room we're seated in here. And it had a lot of flower beds on the property. So, and it was really run down. Literally, it was falling down. So Dad decided to build a little bigger one and better, just to keep the flower beds in the place up. So he did that in 1960 after we moved there and built a greenhouse. It wasn't that big, maybe 20 by 50 feet. And they started a lot of plants for their own flower beds, etc. They always seeded extra. So one spring, I think probably the second spring they were operating, they had some surplus plants sitting in the greenhouse. So they threw a little sign out on the street. bedding plants for sale. People drove in and bought them, and as soon as that surplus was gone, they took the sign down. So they never found how much the market was or whatever. But after about 3 years, they sensed there was a market there. So they added some more greenhouses, very small ones once again, and expanded and started selling plants. So that would be in the 60, 63 area. And that eventually morphed into eventually they moved from that property out west on the highway, and that's where Evergreen Greenhouses was born. It was expanded and built on. When I took the business over in 1971, they had a couple of greenhouses, maybe 3,000 square feet each. And with me involved in the business, we eventually expanded that to about an acre, a little over 45,000 square feet of greenhouse commercial production space. Grew all kinds of things, not just bedding plants. We operated year-round. We grew cut flowers and poinsettias and flowering plants. Somewhere along the way, I married my childhood sweetheart, and she was a secretary with the school district, and we had an opportunity because we were already in the plant business to take over the local florist shops. So my wife did that with my help, and that became Evergreen Florists. We've operated one location downtown for, 30, 35 years, and another one in the Lloyd Mall for a while. And the greenhouse production, a lot of it was aimed at the florist shops that we owned. So that's how that business expanded. And it's an interesting business. It's identical to farming. Things changed in my lifetime in that business, from just as farming has changed with the advent of computers and fertilizer and mixers and all kinds of things, and environmental controls that weren't there in the beginning but were there in the end. It was basically like most industries, you have to keep learning. So it was a learning curve. I might have went to college for a couple of years, might have studied, might have partied a lot too in that time, but
You
that's a
didn't
different
party.
subject.
We don't party when we go to college, do we?
No. But, I thought I learned a whole pile in the couple of years I was at college, but I found that I soon learned a whole lot more operating a real business in the real world and having to stay abreast of the latest changes, if that makes any sense.
It certainly does. So it's safe to say then, growing up, you grew up in a flower shop or a greenhouse.
Well, yeah, from age 9.
Onwards.
Onward, yes.
What did your parents do before we're at the rail yards?
My dad was that was my grandparents that worked for the CPR, and he was a station agent for the CPR.
What did your parents do, or what did your dad do before he opened Evergreen then?
Coming out of the war, he was the bulk fuel agent for BA, which is British American Oil Company. And he worked really hard at that. The dealership wasn't doing not very well. But Dad rolled up his sleeves and headed out to the farming community and solicited a whole pile of business. And he got the place turned around. Turned it around so damn good that after, I guess he did that from 50 on to 59. He built the business up to the point where the BA Oil Company decided he didn't need quite as much commission because he had all this volume. That wasn't why Dad sourced the extra business. It was to put money in his jeans. So he had an opportunity to become the Kodiak Petroleum refinery bulk agent, which he did. He moved from the BA out west to where Pizza Hut is now in Lloydminster. And the old Kodiak refinery site is across the road. They're trying to clean it up. It's been a bit of a nightmare, I guess, for them, all the contamination. It was kind of on that subject, it was kind of interesting. I grew up around the bulk fuel business, and of course Dad and I made numerous trips across to the Kodiak refinery. So, I don't think you can be an 8-year-old kid wandering around the Husky refinery now without a hard hat and a whole bunch of safety courses, but it was a different era in 1960. So I was over there regularly, watched what went on there, like they'd have an oil spill and they just dump more sand on top of it, and another oil spill, more sand on top of it, and all kinds of things. Environmentally, contamination went on over there. I could talk for hours on that, but yeah, that was. It was somewhere in there that my dad took ill in the early mid '60s, and the greenhouse became the focus for basically run by my mother. Then in like 1971, I guess, coming out of college, I joined the family business and expanded it to what it operated as Evergreen Greenhouses that people know today. But they don't know it today because 6 years ago we sold the property and those greenhouses are long gone. But it was a timely business decision. A, Kevin needed to retire, and B, property values were at such that
It made sense.
Made sense.
Yeah. Growing up then, is that what you wanted to do? Did you want to be in the greenhouse business? Did you want to be in the flowers and plants, or were you interested in something else?
No, I wasn't certain if I was interested in it or not. So coming out of grade 12, I took a year off. I worked in the business to see if I liked it or not. And after that, I decided that I did enjoy it. I liked watching the plants grow. I liked making them grow. I mean, if that's a possibility. Sometimes it is, some days it isn't. But after a year of that, I decided to take a couple of years of college.
And where did you go to school?
Olds College, Olds, Alberta. There was only two places you could go. One was Olds College, and they had a all-encompassing horticultural program. Or I could have I was actually registered to go to Chicago, which I may not have survived based on the late night news from Chicago these days. But anyway.
We're talking like United States Chicago.
Yeah, the United States Chicago.
Or Olds.
Yeah, or Olds. But the one in the U.S. was actually all just greenhouse, whereas Olds was all encompassing. And I figured out just shortly before it was time to depart that if I was going to be in the greenhouse business in Lloydminster, I'm going to get asked a whole pile of questions about gardening, trees, shrubs, weeds, all of that, not just specifically how to manage a greenhouse. So that was why I chose Olds, for the all-encompassing knowledge. Or is more encompassing, let's put it that way.
So what does the average person not understand about plants? Like I know that's a deep, long question, but you ran that business for a long time.
46 years.
And you said over 46 years, it constantly evolved, constantly changed. Maybe what's one of the best lessons when you look back at it, like, when I first came out of college, I thought I had this figured out. And then after 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, you learned that was not what they teach. Or, I don't know. That's one of the things that makes plants thrive. Or
most of the knowledge was from the college years. It was very valid. It's just that more knowledge become available. A quick example. Greenhouses always run their daytime temperature warm because that emulates the sun. It's warm, right? And nighttime temperature's cooler because, the sun's gone. And that has a certain influence on plant growth. And so that was always the way greenhouses were run. Somebody along the way figured that some crops respond to the direct opposite. Warm nights, cool days, and they found that it shortens the plant growth. So for certain ornamentals, such as a potted flowering plant, chrysanthemum, one of your problems was controlling the height of the plant. By flipping that temperature, it could be shrunk back down. So that knowledge wasn't there in 1971, but it was there in 1980. And if you didn't stay abreast of that kind of change in the industry, you'd be left behind.
And that industry is constantly evolving?
Yes. More so, I'd say more so in the last, whenever computers were invented and become commonplace in business. Because before that, nobody could look at all the environmental controls required for a greenhouse. I mean, you could try, but you didn't win because there's so many. You've got light, heat, temperature, humidity, fertilizer, amount of fertilizer, blah, blah, blah. Well, computers can, with the right sensors, can track all of that. So now, I mean, we used to fertilize, if we were fertilizing a tomato crop, we would apply a certain amount of fertilizer based on, what past things revealed the crop needed, knowing full well that if we get 3 weeks of cloudy weather, that we've over-fertilized, or if we get 3 weeks of bright sunshine, we've under-fertilized. Now computers can keep track of all of that. And we used to grow most of our plants used to be grown in a substrata called dirt. It's fairly common, it's everywhere. However, artificial growth media has taken over for a lot of the crops. And without the clay particles in there, am I getting too technical?
No,
without the clay particles in there to absorb the fertilizer and hold it for future days ahead, we can now swap that fertilizer out almost instantly with we're talking hydroponics, which is quite an industry in itself. It's been spawned by, no, we won't go there. Hydroponics, I mean. We can, now with computers, we can change that fertility level based on what's happening instantaneously. If the sun goes under a cloud, within 10 minutes, we can change the fertility level to the plant. So that's cutting edge technology.
That is second by second, essentially dialing in to make sure any plant you get the best
right
dialed into like the smallest.
There's always a restriction to plant growth. Like if you're trying to maximize what a plant can do, there's always a restriction. It could be daylight, it could be this, it could be that. And to try and control the environment to the level that you're maximizing that plant growth is most difficult. But computers have sure helped us. Now we can control that environment much more specifically for total growth enhancement of the plant. It's just the way life is.
I assume that's a huge investment on a greenhouse's part to implement sensors, computers to track everything. Would that be a giant expense, or is it not that bad?
I don't think it's not that bad. We were never, just so you're clear, I mean, my greenhouse was never cutting edge technology to the level because we were doing the same thing in the last few years. But I was using that as an example of how the industry has changed.
Okay.
Okay. But the cost of it is, well, like most things in business, if there's no payback, you don't do it. So the cost of those computers is obviously paying back by increased yields. That's just that simple.
What was one of maybe your favorite plants or to work with? Is there something that sticks out that was just fun to play around with, or had some intriguing characteristics that as a young guy you saw it do what it does and you're like, man, that's pretty cool?
Nah. We got into poinsettia production, which is, there's a lot of parameters there. They're achieved by flowering initiation by day length, and but once again, trying to maximize making each variety of them perform to its best ability. It was a challenge that I enjoyed. We won a lot of ones. We lost a lot of battles too, but we did have what I would consider an outstanding product. I did not actually realize how good our operation was until actually we quit. And we had couple salesmen that travel all across Western Canada drop in and wish us the best in our retirement. And they said, we travel greenhouses from Winnipeg to Vancouver. And he said, you were in the top 3 as far as doing things right within the industry for what we were doing. And that made me feel pretty damn good. Almost made me want to start building more greenhouses and getting back into the business.
Have you enjoyed retirement?
Yeah, I have. The greenhouse, the good parts of the greenhouse business, growing the plants, watching them grow, and when everything goes right, you feel like a winner. The bad thing was dealing with the economics of the business. You can grow all of this stuff, but if the weather doesn't contribute, I'm talking a bedding plant crop, but you spend 6-8 months growing that crop, ready to market it. And then if Lloydminster gets dumped with snow on the 15th of May, and the weather stays cold till the 1st of June. By now, people are up at the lake, and they aren't planting the flowers in the yard that they normally plant because, well, they're just pissed at the weather. So that influences your bottom line. It also influences your quality of product, which we took to the nth degree. That's why people miss us so much in Lloyd, and I know they do because I get told on the street, God, we miss you people. We didn't just grow bedding plants. We didn't just grow one crop of say, a particular item. Say, call it white alyssum, border plant. We didn't grow it once. We didn't grow it twice. We didn't grow it 3 times. We grew it 7 times. So the crop was spaced out. So that my objective was always, if you walk into my place on the 10th of May to buy white alyssum, it's going to look like that. If you come in on the 7th of June, it's going to look like that. Whereas if you only plant it once, by the time you get to the 7th of June, it's looking shabby and overgrown and looks like it belongs in the dumpster. So that was the kind of care that we put into the product. So it was fun developing all of those programs that wouldn't make that possible.
I'm not gonna lie. In my brain, I went. You were talking about different things that can impact the greenhouses for the bad, and I was going, yeah, but it's in a greenhouse. What could really go on in the out? Like you're controlling the environment.
Exactly.
But you can't control what happens
externally, no.
Especially in this place.
Well, years ago, Lloydminster had a water shortage when we weren't all the way to the river. We were at Sandy Beach. And all of a sudden, let me guess, 5th of May, the city came out with a no more watering of gardens because we got too short of water. $200,000 worth of product went to the dump that year because our sales were that low because of that decree. They could have held off till about the 3rd week of May, in which case we'd have moved that product, but no. But that's economic things. There's always something. I guess today it's COVID, so there's a water shortage, there's COVID, there's always something, external factors coming in when you're in business.
So as a businessman, how did you prepare or try and alleviate some of the pressures of things out of your control? I assume after the first couple times, you talk about $200,000 worth of product, like that had to stung.
Yes.
What did you try and do after that?
Well, you try and balance your inventory for the next year. Are people going to be gardening back? I mean, I could tell you numerous things that we tried, but basically it almost comes down to put a dartboard on the wall because you never know what's going to happen. So you have to have a positive attitude and go forward.
Sitting where you're sitting right now, though, if you went back to your 20-ish self when you were getting in, 22-year-old self, whatever the number was, when you're starting out, what would you tell yourself? Like, listen, kid, there's a couple of lessons I've learned along the way that are going to help you.
I can't really think of one. As I look back, it depends what you want in life. If I look back and if I was looking to make money, I would not have made that my career choice, the greenhouse business. The oil patch would be much more lucrative. But there's people with the downturn of oil and stuff that would certainly argue that. Matter of fact, they'd shoot me for even saying it. But
for a lot of years, if you hit the right patch
Yes.
of the oil patch or the right stretch, there was a lot of money to be made in the oil field.
Yes.
Yeah. Currently,
I didn't envy them. It's just that if you asked me to look back, and I sometimes look back, did I make the right career choice? I think I did. I mean, I've enjoyed what I've done all my life, so that has got to be a bonus round.
I think everybody looks for that growing
Yes.
up, right? If that's one lesson you learn, you get in a job you don't love, makes every day pretty miserable.
Well, the greenhouse business especially, considering Lloydminster's climate, wasn't a bad place to work, in January. You're in your shirt sleeves, the sun's beating through the roof, you're surrounded by green plants. It's almost like a holiday. But yeah.
See, there's nothing, I don't know. I honestly, you're the guy with the wisdom. So I sit across you and I go, surely you would have, follow what you want to do then. Because obviously you enjoyed plants.
Yes.
And you go back to yourself and go, listen, you're making the right career if you want something you enjoy. Now, if you want to go make a boatload of money, maybe go do X.
Yes. Well, to me, I got way more satisfaction if we had a good year and there was a decent bottom line for a change. I mean, that's a feather in your cap. Right? You should be happy. I was always more happy if the plants that I was growing looked good and were good. Make any sense?
That's your product.
Yes.
Your effort.
And if it was a crop that we'd put a lot of work into, and at the 11th hour something happened to it and it went downhill, that's depressing. That's more depressing than not making money.
What would happen at the 11th hour to make a product go the opposite way?
Oh,
We got nothing but time.
Nothing but time. Well,
That's right.
Poinsettia crop in the 11th hour. You grow them from July till early December. You're going to start marketing them. If the planets align themselves correctly, you can get a root rot in there, Pythium, Rhizoctonia, even though you've treated for it. And it's caused by overwatering. So if you got the crop well watered and then it goes cloudy for a few days and they sit in too moist a soil, diseases can happen. It's no different than farming. That hailstorm can come at any time.
What does your brain do with that? Like, you've done absolutely everything in your possible means to make sure you have this is going to be a great year. We're going to have a good year. And then, like you say, the planets align. And all of a sudden you got some disease breakout and you're like, man.
Well, I guess it's the proverbial what hits the fan. It's something you can't control. You just roll with the punch. Is that a philosophical attitude? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I find it very interesting. It's just, one of the things, I grew up as a farm kid, watched Dad, and then, the girl from Hillmont, right? So got to watch all the different farmers go about their daily routine and whatever else. I love farming. Farming is, I think, from the outside looking in, is like, it's a great lifestyle. You work really hard for a short period of time, then you got to sit there and do some things right and hope things go right and whatever. And you're out in the field, and there's nothing better than being out in the field, and the people are amazing. But at the end of the day, you're gambling every year.
Yes,
because,
you are.
I mean, you've already talked about, we live in an area where snow, rain, not enough rain, too much rain. I mean, let's just go down the list of possible outcomes.
Right.
And I go, man, that'd be stressful. I can't imagine. Like, I was just, I was talking to one of them this morning before I came here. And when you're a young guy and you don't have the weight of responsibility of, call it, kids is a big one, or house loan or bills or whatever, you can get by, we had not the greatest year. That's okay. Well, we won't do this. But as soon as you have kids and people to look after and that stress coming on you,
Yes.
everybody knows that stress. That stress is an uncomfortable thing to get used to.
It's funny you should bring up the farming community because people don't perceive greenhouse operators as farmers, but we're actually intensive farmers, extremely intense on the amount of dollars we produce out of a square foot, whereas farmers are talking in acres, right? But I have a lot of family and friends in the farming industry, and I've still got mobbed a couple times because I would say to them, "You farmers, I don't think you're very smart." And they'd look at me. Well, anybody that tries to grow plants and you can't control the temperature, and you can't control when they get watered, and you can't control the large degree the amount of fertilizer, I just don't think that's smart. I have been almost mobbed over that statement, but it's meant as tongue-in-cheek because that's the difference between greenhouses and outdoor farming.
Well, I mean, the greenhouse on the side, I already said it once, I think, right? Like,
Yes.
you can control 96%.
Yeah, you said everything, but you were wrong.
Right. I was wrong. I was thinking in my brain, I go, you can control everything. Like, I don't see why there'd be a fluctuation. But the outside world, well, we're
Yes.
going through it right now. Like,
Yep.
what do you think of this COVID-19 pandemic? In your 70 years, is there anything that even remotely comes close to this?
Nothing. It's totally unexpected. I mean, if you want to talk the financial impact of COVID, I'm retired, so I have a few little investments here and there. What I considered to be a safe investment, totally safe, they would call it blue chip, whatever the term is. Yeah, well, they dropped very significantly. Fortunately, they've recovered a little bit, but when COVID hit, like, nobody saw that coming.
No.
Like, absolutely not. It's not like a U.S. presidential election where you can say, oh, there's going to be a good guy or a bad guy. But no, nobody saw COVID coming. Nobody saw the oil price dropping the way it just did in the recent COVID times either. So it's a one-in-a-lifetime event. I hope never to see another one in my lifetime. I'd like to look back, archival footage of Lloydminster, and have that in behind me. It's like, oh yeah, we had a hiccup there in the year 2000. It was that we got over it. This seems more intense to me than that.
It feels pretty intense, doesn't it?
It does.
You lived through the 80s. The 80s, I hear, were with interest rates and everything else.
Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, that was orchestrated by same guy's name as the present prime minister. You must know who I'm talking about. It's a father and son team, it seems like, on the Western economy to kick us down.
Why do you think they want that?
Oh, I'm not sure what any government wants anymore, because they seem to be doing the stupidest things. Racial equality, and yet every move they make is creating wider gaps. Am I getting off on a tangent here? I'm sorry, but it's just wrong.
As I told you at the start of this, there's no wrong here. This is just a conversation.
Right.
Now, it's centered around your story, your life, but to talk about what's going on right now, I say that one of the reasons I enjoy doing this so much is perspective. 70 years gives you a pretty good perspective. Now, can give you some things that you look at differently than other people. Sure, that's
Absolutely.
life. That's everybody's bubble. In Lloyd, we got 30,000 people who probably look at lots of things differently. But around this area in particular, when it comes to Trudeau and when it comes to his father, there are very few people who don't say exactly what you just said.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon because it's popular. I'm jumping on the bandwagon because it's right. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's, as a younger guy, once again, growing up in this area and hearing the stories and seeing what's going on right now, I completely get that sentiment. And if you watch Mr. Justin on any time he gets asked a difficult question, leaders should have an answer for it. At least, listen, this is more complex. I think I normally can get on board with, listen, it's more complex than just what you're asking, and at least have some talking points.
Yes.
But anytime you give him a tough question, just an inkling of a tough question, man, he is the worst thing ever to watch. It is terrible. And that's a guy that's elected. And the thing that my brain struggles with is, it isn't like now he's at like 10 people want him back in. He's still possibly our leader for the next 4 years if they called an election tomorrow.
I suspect he might be. Yeah. To me, he's probably should get elected based on the number of votes he's tried to buy with all of these programs. Like, he doesn't seem to have the economic sense that somebody's going to be paying for these down the road. And unfortunately, it's my grandkids. It's that's just simple. You can't take the country that's far in debt as he has.
So why then...
Ooh, sorry.
Oh, you're ringing. So why then... One of the things I've struggled with is, why is it...
I'll try and kill this thing. It's basketball scores. I'll be okay with them.
Why then is it that somebody that you want to lead the country isn't trying to do that? Or is politics so far removed from issues now that even if you got in to be the prime minister, you can't change things for common sense initiatives to help the country out, help things get better. Do they not like?
I would be commenting on something that I really shouldn't, because I don't have the depth of knowledge on it. But I will say this. A great many of our politicians lose common sense when they get into the House of Commons or the ML legislature. And it must be the bureaucracy they face. I'm not getting down on the individuals. It just seems to me that they somehow lose common sense.
Growing up, was your family into politics, or is that something that at a certain age, or maybe when you took over the business, or was there a certain point, do you remember, where you're like started really paying attention to it?
Probably mid-70s. I did start paying attention, and quite frankly, they annoyed me so much I almost quit paying attention for a few years, because it was just so frustrating to watch the national news. It was depressing. So. But people don't. I have trouble talking to people, not you in particular, but they seem to lack common sense. Hey, I could tell you a real quick story.
Sure.
I was driving with my nephew to Edmonton. I'd be 30 years old, and he'd be about 21. And we got on the subject of the deficit. It took me almost halfway to Edmonton to explain to him the deficit. He said, well, it was just on the news, the deficit's down. I said, no, the deficit's not down. The deficit is smaller than last year, projected. I said, that doesn't mean the deficit's down. The deficit is the total amount of money that our government owes. And I said, in 1971, when I married my wife, we were saving for a color TV instead of a black and white. And we saved, and I think our federal deficit at that time was something like $340 per Canadian. It was some number, I can't remember it. But I said numerous times to the wife, why don't we just roll up our sleeves and we'll cut the steak out on Saturday night and we'll have wieners. And in a year we can pay that deficit off and it'll be gone forever. And that was a very doable thing to roll up our sleeves, each Canadian, and in 1 year we pay off the deficit. I said, in the interim, the government has spent money. Basically, they're spending money as if it was a personal Visa card without ever worrying about paying it back. And I said, now that Visa card debt is so high that there's no way on God's green earth that I could roll up my sleeves and pay it off in a year. So it's a snowball effect. And that's from about 1980, I'm referring to, the conversation took place. Well, that snowball's been going downhill and getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And picking up steam.
And picking up steam, so as we go. Like, once in a while you have a politician that will step up to the plate and do something. You may not remember Peter Lougheed, but he was our premier in Alberta. Bud Miller, who our park in Lloydminster is named after, was the MLA under Peter Lougheed. But they put together what I thought was an awesome program. It's called the Heritage Savings Trust Fund. It was putting Alberta's money, some of their oil revenue, aside for a rainy day. You know, and with COVID, it's raining outside.
It's downpouring outside.
It's downpouring.
Yeah.
But in the interim governments that followed, that looked after the Alberta Heritage Trust Fund, I like that word, trust. They decided that, you know, it was supposed to be invested in stocks, bonds, whatever, something you could turn to cash, right? Well, they decided they'd invested in Albertans' future. So they built hospitals with it. They built Bud Miller Park with it. They built numerous parks and sports facilities. I'm not privy to all what they did with it, but
right.
The bottom line is none of those things can be turned to cash for our COVID rainy day. You're not going to sell a hospital. You're not going to sell a park. So that's how politicians can warp the intent of an original idea. So you think I'm cynical? I am. When it comes to politics,
I just think it's listen, I haven't ran a business for 40 some years, right?
Right.
So I'm just a young guy with young kids who didn't pay attention to politics until the first time he gets elected. And it just kind of picked your head up, because when things are good, you just kind of go along with the,
Yes.
right? Like you talked earlier that they annoyed you, so you pretty much turned it off. I tell you right now, I am friggin' annoyed. It's hard to watch. It's hard for me in a group of 5 guys to turn it on and not watch it, or not turn it off in the first 30 seconds, because it doesn't matter what side we're talking about. They both sound like idiots. We can't come to sense on any matter, and that's what's running our country. And the only thing that gives me a little bit of solace is, as bad as things are, they could go to a hell of a lot worse. And like, we're pretty, I get to sit and talk with people who have been through some real things, go back to the 30s and 40s and stuff like that, and hear them talk about it. And while I'm still sitting here, still got food on the table and
Right.
shelter over the head, but I don't fully understand it. Actually, it's become almost so complex. It's hard for the brain to get around. It's hard to make sense of what's going on and why,
Yes.
Kevin doesn't run for politics, change it around in 2 years, and we're on the up and up and moving that way. Right? Do the
That's-
wiener thing instead of steaks. Way we go.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't think the general public has the I wouldn't say expertise, but the desire. I just don't think that. I'm probably get lynched leaving the building here if the general public is out there. But my perception is that people don't understand. They don't understand that deficit. They don't understand the direction we're heading. What they do understand is that I got $1,000 a month for COVID. I got this. I got that. I got this. And but there is no I got that. Those funds have come from somebody. Somebody's working to pay taxes to pay those funds. Our friend Justin has no money. Well, I shouldn't say that. He's probably got quite a bit that we don't know about, but he's got no money of his own that's helping us. He's using the debt of the country. And I don't think when you get $1,000 COVID check, you say to yourself, ooh, well, this is going to help me. And a lot of people need that help. I'm not knocking it. But I don't think they have the attitude, well, this is helping me, but somebody's going to have to pay this back. And it's certainly not going to be me. It's a cynical approach, but I have trouble wrapping my head around it. I know that it's dire times. I know people need help. But just seems, so many things seem wrong in what's going on out there.
Let's talk about some happy times then.
Oh, happy times, his family, grandkids, holidays
right.
with the family. Yes.
How about your wife? When you said you're high school or childhood sweethearts.
I thought we were going to talk about happy times. Ban this broadcast. She is my happy time. She's been with me for 49 years, and we do everything together. We travel together. I couldn't imagine life without her. And she looks after me to the nth degree. She's always concerned about me. No, she is the love of my life. But I never tell her that.
He just did.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, I do tell her that once in a while. She only remembers the nasty little digs I give her. It's just my sense of humor.
Well, 49 years is damn impressive, I may say so myself. And with any relationship, there's highs and lows. What advice could you give somebody who's entering into their first year?
Their first year, man, that's a long time ago. We'll remember that. I would just concentrate on being a couple, getting along together. And hopefully you were married for the right reason in the first place. And that is that you truly love each other and you want to be together. This divorce thing seemed to be a relatively new phenomenon in my lifetime. Apparently forever just doesn't seem to last forever anymore.
Yeah, it's not. Well, 49 years is a long time, and there's lots of people that have been married for that length, or that kind of track record where they've been together for a long time, and things are happy and great and grand. But there is an increasing number of people who get divorced, and not just once, but multiple times, and it's almost looked at. I mean, I'll say this as. It's good for somebody who puts themselves in a bad situation and need to get out of it. I think we can all agree with that. Like, you get an abusive relationship or what have you, substance abuse maybe, something where it's just unhealthy. I think it's, I think that's understandable.
I never really thought about that until probably late 70s. My wife and I always go to our kids' parent-teacher interviews together, which is kind of unusual, but we're both independently working, so we can adjust our schedule. And one of the teachers in one of the primary grades said to us as we walked in, "Well, this is refreshing." And I said, "Like what?" "It's refreshing. A husband and wife coming to the parent-teacher interviews." "Oh, okay, well, let's get on with the interview. I want to find out how that child of mine has been misbehaving. Let's get to the meat and bones of this thing because I got work to do." But then I quizzed the kids after school when we got home. I said, "How many kids in your classroom are from single-parent families?" That was the majority. Matter of fact, there was only
in the 70s it was.
There was only about 3 kids in that room that had 2 parents. And holy crap, society has evolved, or de-evolved, however you want to look at it. Changed,
yeah.
And I don't think that bodes well for society. We're really getting off on a tangent here, but I mean, to me, the family unit is the building block of society. Without that family unit, we don't have much.
Well, parents, I was laughing about this with the wife last night. Just once again, men and women have different perspectives on things and offer different things to any child.
Yes. And
to remove one completely, well, that is a big chunk of what goes on in a kid's life. I can speak from having, I have friends who their parents have split up and whatever, and just as healthy as me and no issues. But overall, coming from a family that's stuck together and are still together and parents are still together, it's healthy to have both perspectives there at all times to enlighten you and instruct you and keep you on the straight and narrow, so to speak.
Yes. And this comment goes back to almost politics, but within the educational system. I'm losing my train of thought here. It's not that hard. You were talking, I was trying to remember. I've lost it. It'll come back in a minute.
How about...
I know what it was now.
Oh, perfect. You just needed me to say 2 words.
That's right. When my kids were in high school, they come home. Can't remember if it was the son or the daughter. And we were talking about economics. And of course, we've been running a business, and bottom line is important, and being financially stable is important. And this was a life course in the high school, by the way, grade 10 maybe. And their teacher had told them, never worry about debt, because in your entire lifetime ahead of you, you will always be in debt. Holy, that got my dander up, because our generation was, we want a house, we want a car, we want to pay for that car as quick as we can, we want to pay that house off as quick as we can. It says 20 years, let's see if we can get her done in 12 or 15. Oh, circumstance conspired for it's going to be 23. But all of those decisions are still based on getting that debt paid off. Gone. Yeah. So that we can start saving for, our retirement. To have somebody in the public school system teaching the exact opposite of that attitude really rankled me. I might have wrote some letters. Not sure they did any good.
I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, and I'll move us forward to this time. And I just heard I've heard different things, and I can't, my wife's a school teacher, right? So take this with a grain of salt. This is not coming from her. This is coming from other people that I've heard this. And I try and limit her exposure on what I talk about. But I've been told that they're encouraging kids to get Facebook and Twitter and expose them to that world so that they can better understand it. Yet the statistics show the earlier you put a kid in the world of Facebook and all these different technologies, suicide rates go up and bad things go up.
Yes.
Right? In my mind, you want to lower that back down. We want kids to be healthy and happy and not worry about, I mean, we're talking tech things, but like comments and likes and shares and what some guy on the other side of the planet thinks about this and that. Like, let them be kids. Let them worry about what's right in front of us and around us.
Yes. To me, that's, I watch the grandkids in the social media, and fortunately my grandkids are, let's say, reasonably well behaved on that front. But to me, what that internet and all the things that you just mentioned is taking away is the personal one-on-one live contact with other human beings. You know, and you can. It's a different media. I'm too old to absorb it, but you can post things on the internet that you would never say to a crowded room of 300 people.
A crowd of 10 people.
Right. It just, the interaction there is totally different when you're well, I wouldn't say anonymous, but
you're kind of anonymous. You're damn close.
You're protected.
Yeah. Well, and you think that stuff now is influencing our world.
Yes. I mean, when I was in grade school, if you said something obnoxious to somebody, you were probably going to get pummeled. Well, now they've banned pummeling, so it's like, it's just weird.
Speaking of school, did you grow up in the days of the strap and things like that? Or was that already on its way out?
No, they plead the fifth here.
You're saying
Yes.
you never got in trouble?
Actually, I was in, never, but we don't even want to go down this road. But yes, the strap was very valid.
You had the strap used on you then?
Yes.
I'm assuming did you learn your lesson after you got the strap?
Not so much about the strap lesson. I learned the lesson to never go home and tell your parents you got the strap.
Wow.
Because that beating was worse than the strap. Not that my parents beat me, but yeah.
If you So if you got the,
in everybody's defense, including the principal, parents, it was well deserved. Because I was a bit of a badass at times.
a little bit of a shit disturber.
Yeah, you might say that. I remember meeting my grade 8's teacher about 5 years after I was out of school. And we had a little conversation. And I said, yeah, those were the days. Yeah, well, he said, actually, once you get out of school and give you a couple of years in the world, I find a lot of my students have actually turned into human beings.
Well, it's just
In defense of teachers, which I rarely do, but our kids go to Kit Scotty School, so I can only comment on our grandkids I'm referring to. It's a different school atmosphere than when we were in school, and it's all good. I will say that. I remember I was picking the grandkids up from school, so I parked across from where the buses loaded. And this gray-haired gentleman come out with my grandkid, walked past the buses to this crosswalk, walked him across, and brought him down to my vehicle. I got him gone to the sidewalk, so he's on the right side of the street, so now he can come to my vehicle and get in the passenger's door. Life goes on. Carter got in the truck, and I said, "Who was that?" "That was the principal." "Yeah, he won't let us cross the street, and he comes out and supervises the loading of the buses each and every day." Holy crap. Like, I remember being escorted off the school grounds by the principal, but it was different circumstances, different time. I just think that's awesome that the teachers are so in tune with the students. Whereas back in our era, it was more, we're here to teach you and we're out of here at 4:00. It's different, and then for the good.
You know, you mentioned before we started this that you're involved with multiple groups in town. You've done a pile of volunteering in your lifetime. What was it about getting involved with these different groups that attracted you? It sounds like you were a very busy man.
Well, there's been lots of busier volunteers because actually my business kept us busy, so busy that there was limited time to volunteer. But I did myself. I ended up being a member of the Elks Club. Still am. Been a treasurer there for 25 years. Past exalted ruler of the Elks Lodge, and I guess we had this conversation one night at an Elks meeting. Why you joined the Elks? Some joined for the fellowship. Some joined because, well, we've been known to play some cards once in a while and maybe have a refreshing beverage. But fellowship was a big one, and mine was helping my community. Because over the years, the Elks have helped the Hospital Foundation. We still do scholarships to grade 12 graduating students in Lloydminster. We just done numerous things over the years with our limited membership. But to me, that's why I joined the Elks Club. Rotary Club I joined for the same reason. I was invited into Rotary and became a past president there. Worked hard at various fundraising items that are still in play today, some of the ones we started. And once again, community involvement. If you look up what the Rotary Club does in Lloydminster and throughout the world, it's horrendous. And those ones are, the Elks are diminishing membership makes it harder for us to do many major projects anymore. Rotary Club is somewhat smaller, but still going strong. And then because I was retired, somebody come to me and said, why don't you come up and help us out at the Lloyd exhibitions? So I volunteered to help them basically in the beginning selling 50/50s and just volunteering a little bit up there. Next thing you know, I guess I'm always interested in the management of a place, so I ended up being on the board, and somewhere along the way they made me president 18 months ago. I got 6 months left, so I'm excited. I'm excited for those 6 months to get by, especially with COVID. But once again, that organization also does tremendous things for our community and for our whole area. So it's a way of paying back the community for being a good place for me to live and raise my family.
Speaking of Lloydminster in particular, and you talk about being a good place to raise your family and have a business and that kind of thing, what's maybe some of the biggest changes you've seen over time? I know the growth that everybody talks about, how big Lloyd has got from when, it was a little fledgling city of, 7,000 people, that kind of thing. What are some other things that stick out to you, for the good or bad, that Lloyd has seen change over time?
Well, I think backing up to the 1950s, I can remember a conversation at the dining room table, 1957, Mom and Dad were talking. There was a stranger on the street downtown when I was shopping for groceries, and we asked around, nobody knew who that stranger was. That's how small Lloydminster was in the early 50s. Everybody knew everybody. But then Lloyd started to grow, and growth is good. I think Lloydminster is very, very fortunate that we were situated where we are, in between Edmonton and Saskatoon. There was a need for a hub.
Yeah,
whether industrial, medical, educational, like Lancaster, there's just a need for a hub to be located here, and I think Lloydminster's growing. I think it's growing well. We may have had a few building spurts and hiccups along the way or whatever, but overall, I think Lloydminster is a strong, vibrant community. I think Lloydminster will continue to be a strong, vibrant community.
Did you ever get used to the wind?
Oh, you're talking to a guy that used to live in poly greenhouses with the wind flapping the poly. I never get used to the wind.
How about, growing up, different people have mentors or people that teach them things. Is there any mentor that sticks out to you in your lifetime that taught you some valuable lessons along your way?
Not one specific one, but in the Rotary Club, there was a lot of successful businessmen, and just to be associated with them, I think helped me tremendously. Just to get the right perspective on the world.
Is there anything left on your bucket list that you want to go do?
One of the nice things about getting older is you start getting forgetful. There's a set of falls in the middle of South America. I think it's the highest falls in the world. I want to go visit that. That's about the only one left on my bucket list. Minor buckets or little pailfuls would be, I've never been overseas to Europe. We'd like to do that. As a matter of fact, we were about to do that this year. We've holidayed everywhere down south for the Caribbean. You name a place, I've probably been there. But we've never been overseas, and I would like to go over there because I'd like to see some of the history. I mean, if you look at locally, I was a young pup when we built the Dr. Cook nursing home. I was midlife when they tore it down. Like 30 years later, we're tearing down buildings. Over there, they're 300 years old and they're still using them. I'd like to see that. I see a little bit of that in the Caribbean, but Cuba and Havana especially, there's some very, very old buildings there. But just the history.
I'll give you one more, and then I'll let you get on with your day.
Okay.
Over your lifetime, has there been an event that sticks out to you? Whether you're talking, some of the big ones are Man on the Moon, JFK, sports-wise, maybe Muhammad Ali, or, that you're mentioning basketball scores, and maybe something along that lines. I don't know. Is there something that, in your lifetime that sticks out that was a world event, and you're like, holy man, or stopped you in your tracks, or you can remember where you were sitting at the moment it happened?
Well, there's been a couple. Number one, my marriage. Not that that's a traumatic experience, but that was an important event in my life. I also remember, it's intriguing how people can remember where they were when they heard the fact that JFK was shot. I know exactly where I was. I know exactly who told it to me. There's lots of weird things from that date that I certainly wouldn't remember, but I remember that. I think I haven't been a big sports fan, but I think 9/11 really, I wouldn't say moved me. Well, it did move me. We lost a lot of people in it. But it brought home to me the perspective of the world and all the different viewpoints. And it brought into question, I did some reading, the U.S. policy. You wonder why we annoy people in the world, but I mean, with one stroke of a pen, the U.S. aid can make or break or kill hundreds of thousands of people. It's, from our perspective, it's all good what goes on, but some of the policies they implement, maybe if you were over there and you saw the effects of them, not so good. So this 9/11 terrorist act, the fact that it was on the news the other night. But I did watch that. I watched it live, and it brought home to me the polarization throughout the world that we face today. And it doesn't give me any solutions for it, but it made me painfully aware of it, that you can have all that strife. The Middle East, when I was in high school, it was, what was it called? Syria? I forget. It was like, okay, you passed your geography lesson, good for you. And then over the years, all these little other countries got chopped off, broke up, cut apart. And one day I was like, this seems like a lot of strife over there. So I went and got the globe, and I took a little piece of paper and I drew it around that area where all the disturbances are going on. And I brought it over, and, it would fit in the bottom south corner of Alberta, like geographically. And you get all of that hatred and religious zealots, whatever's going on over there, to try and understand that, I think was 911 was kind of pivotal to open my eyes to look around and say, what's really going on here? And I haven't quite figured it out yet.
It's a tough one. It's very complex. Well, I appreciate you coming in and sitting down with me and sharing a bit about your life and some of your viewpoints. I think it's been thoroughly enjoyable.
Well, I wasn't sure what I was getting into, and not sure what I've been into, but anyway, it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
You bet.
Hey, folks, thanks for joining us today. If you just stumbled on the show, please click subscribe. Then scroll to the bottom and rate and leave a review. I promise it helps. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, we will have a new guest sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcast fix. Until next time. Hey, Keeners. Thanks for tuning in today. Shout out today to Devin from Wainwright. He said, just listen to Vance. He's talking about Vance Crowe. That's back on episode 152. He said, really enjoyed it. It flew by, and it seemed like you were just getting into it. That is very true. Vance Crowe and me only had an hour, which it seems like a ton of time until you get into a good conversation, and it just seems to, disappear. Now, I hope you guys all have a great week, and if you are the champer, chances are it's hump day, feet up on the desk. I suggest maybe getting back to it, big shooter, all right? To the rest of you, we'll catch you Monday, all right? Till then, have a great week.